GeoBiz. Here we have in our studios Anthony Calamito, CTO of Boundless. Anthony, very welcome to GeoBiz. Thanks for being on our show.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Okay. It came as a pleasant surprise in the morning today. You and Boundless had a partnership with Harris. Would you let us know what exactly is the partnership about?
This morning there was a press release that went out, talked a little bit about how Boundless is working with Harris Corporation, a big systems integrator here in the greater Metro DC area. They've become essentially one of our key integrators, one of the key go-to partners for integrating open source technology within our federal government customer space. So we've developed a couple unique software capabilities that work to implement open source into areas of the federal government that have traditionally been proprietary software based. And we thought that it was a partnership worth highlighting in hopes that it will show that Boundless is willing to work with not just Harris, but all big federal systems integrators in the greater DC area. So.
Are you also looking or exploring other system integrators?
We are. Back in, I want to say, July or August of last year, of 2015, we actually announced a very similar partnership with Leidos Corporation.
Oh, I see.
So again, we're very open to working with all systems integrators in the space. Harris just happens to be the next one to line up very strategically with what Boundless is.
So what is the strengths Boundless brings to these system integrators? What kind of capabilities is Boundless bringing to the table?
One of the main advantages of working through Boundless is you're utilizing the value of open source. Open source means a lot of things to a lot of different people. One, the code base is completely open. Because it's open and shareable and downloadable by everyone, the code itself tends to be much more robust. There are thousands of eyes looking at the code base to make sure that it works the way it needs to work, it doesn't have any bad code in it, the code is very well written, and because so many people are looking at it, you have the ability to get enhancements into that software at a much more rapid pace than a traditional commercial or proprietary software base, where you have set releases. Those releases are sometimes 5, 6, 8, 9 months out, and you have to wait 9 months in order to see those changes get back into the software. With the open source model, those changes are rolled in every 2 weeks in a sprint cycle, or every month or 2 months. The release cycles are much shorter. So you're able to get more technology and newer technology into the software at a much more rapid pace. And certainly for federal systems integrators like the Leidoses, like the Harrises, and like others who are selling their solutions back to the government, there's usually a fee, a cost associated with that. And when working with open source software, you've essentially gotten rid of the license costs because open source software doesn't have any licensing costs associated with it. So you've lowered that barrier of entry for those federal systems integrators to give that platform back to their customer base.
Definitely the cost parameter is one aspect which is enticing over there, but the flexibility and the support that one would get in a proprietary system, would that match in using open source software?
All the open source software that Boundless manages, you can go to the open web and download from QGIS.org, geoserver.org. They all have their own organizations, their own forums that you can question and email and post to. But when you work through Boundless, you're actually getting support and maintenance associated with each of those products. So you're actually able to have a phone that you can pick up, someone will answer on the other end if you're having problems. If you run into a bug, which is not uncommon, you're able to contact Boundless directly and make sure that you get a response within 24 hours. You're not always guaranteed that level of response if you go through the commercial forums that are out there. So Boundless provides essentially an insurance policy for using open source geospatial technology in your system.
What is the motivation? Why is Boundless its entire philosophy around open source and not any other proprietary software?
What we're seeing that the slope of enlightenment as part of that hype curve. We're seeing people with second and third generation technologies, and people are starting to understand that open source is stable, it updates very quickly, it has lots of eyes looking at it, so it's getting enhanced very quickly. And for customers, particularly in the United States that move very quickly, technology companies, the ability to bring in a lot of this new technology at a rapid pace is very attractive. But of course, there's no cost with it as well. And in our case, a lot of times people are worried about security. And one of the things that we've noticed is open source software is actually more secure. Because again, you've got more eyes looking at that code base. You have more eyes looking for bugs and fixing bugs. And essentially by being open, we're allowing as much of our customer base as possible to validate the code, to vet that code, to enhance it, to make it meet as many needs as possible. So lots of interest in open source as a movement over the last few years.
As you work with many customers, you might have encountered situations where there are systems with existing proprietary software
Sure.
and solutions available. How is Boundless solutions or software trying to be in sync and be interoperable with existing systems?
So Boundless, all of our software subscribes to OGC standards, the Open Geospatial Consortium, and that's intentional. All of the communication between the code, communication between our software products, and communication between our products and other products, whether they be proprietary or other open source products, all occur using those Open Geospatial Consortium standards. That way we're ensured that we are interoperable, whether you're using a proprietary system, another open source system, or something third party that we're not aware of. As long as that system subscribes to OGC, you're able to communicate with it. And one of the things we've seen is this move to hybrid models. We would never go in and suggest to rip and replace. That's a bad idea. You don't need to rip everything out to start using Boundless technology.
True.
But what we're starting to see is this hybrid model. Where I can, I'm going to use open source, and where I need to continue using my proprietary solutions, I will continue to do that. But as long as they all talk OGC, those standards are in place, everybody works very nicely together.
How was the response to this hybrid solution?
Very good. In fact, we've got several blog posts and white papers on our website. They were by far and away the most popular items on our website through 2015. So we are seeing a tremendous uptick in folks who want to begin to implement hybrid architectures by bringing open source in to replace some of the unnecessary or unneeded proprietary solutions as part of their architecture.
Have you seen this enthusiasm specific to a particular geography where the maturity levels of the market are high, or is that the case elsewhere, everywhere in the world?
It's pretty uniform. I'd say that for the most part, we're starting to see it in places where budgets have been cut. So in areas like state and local governments, even in defense, the spending's been cut quite a bit over the last couple of years. And those are the folks who've been hit the hardest, who are looking for a solution that will give them the most bang for their buck while saving them a little bit of cost in the end. And open source certainly lends itself to that very well.
So in terms of identifying the geographies where there's a lot of enthusiasm for open source, would you mind naming the geographies and regions?
Outside of the United States, Europe has always been a big open source powerhouse for us with the whole Inspire movement. I know you and I have talked about previously. Very, very interested in it. We've seen quite a bit of uptake also in Australia. We've seen quite a bit of uptake in the UK. A lot of places that are looking at smart cities are beginning to understand the need for open source in a hybrid environment. There are certainly technologies that they're going to use and continue to use, and they may be proprietary, but being able to implement open source as part of a larger hybrid architecture, that's where we're seeing a lot of uptake. So again, and I'd say those are the big main areas right now, mostly first world, mostly industrialized countries who are looking to enable more technology, enable more capability, but not necessarily have a price tag associated with that.
Coming back to the Boundless and your products and solutions, I'd like to understand your OpenGeo suite and what kind of solutions are you facilitating with the suite?
So the suite itself, OpenGeo Suite, is actually made of 5 individual products.
Okay.
There is a database component, an application server component, a front-end web mapping application, as well as a desktop application, and then another component that helps to create tiled cached maps. And all 5 of those components can be mixed and matched in any order. So you may have a very enterprise scenario where I need to create server-side mapping capability. So you would utilize GeoServer, our server-side map application server. And maybe you're using Google Earth or ArcGIS or Skyline to connect to that server-based map. And you can certainly do that in a hybrid architecture. Other organizations have the need for map applications, whether they be web or mobile. And so you may be using OpenLayers, our web application framework, for building both web and mobile applications on it. 2 of the more exciting projects that we're working on that will become part of the OpenGeo Suite umbrella this year, one is called GeoNode, and that is essentially a content management system. And this is going to allow users to create portals for the search and discovery of geospatial content. And the other is called GeoGig, and GeoGig is a Git-based framework for doing editing of geographic data. So you can fork content to your local system, maybe make some edits to that, and then merge that back into the parent repo so that you've essentially done editing That editing, again, can occur on a mobile device, through a web application. It can be done disconnected by syncing that with your system, taking it off the network, making changes in the field, and then connecting back up again. So those two capabilities will also become part of the project going forward. And so what you see is essentially an entire suite that allows you to work at the database level, at the application server level, and even at the end user level to support a wide variety of geospatial capability.
What are the major sectors of interest for Boundless in terms of applications?
We've seen a tremendous amount of uptake from certainly the federal government space over the last couple of years. The biggest growing sectors right now, one is insurance. The insurance companies are very interested in using all of the new imagery that's being collected by all these Planet Labs, Skybox, these small sat companies, to understand whether or not they're being frauded for fraud purposes. We're also seeing a large uptake in agriculture. Same use case, right? We've got drones, we have small sats collecting imagery at a pace we've never seen before. How can we utilize that information to help us understand crop yield, drought, effects of drought, that type of thing? So we're getting a lot of interest from those two spaces. Interestingly enough, we're also getting a lot of interest from maritime domain awareness. So moving sort of off of land into the sea. How do we look at our exclusive economic zones and people maybe intruding in that space? How do we better understand seasonality of wave heights and sea surface temperature and how that affects what we know about the not just the way people move, but the way fish and migratory birds move along with that. So we're seeing quite a bit of uptick in the oceans, I guess is a good way to put that. And then the last big one we're seeing right now is smart cities. A lot of the movement to wearables, connected devices, Internet of Things. We're seeing a lot of citywide organizations come to us. New York City is a great example. We've been working with New York City for many years now to better understand how open source geospatial technology can be used to make their cities smarter. So those are the big areas we're being asked to support right now.
How has been Boundless journey in the geospatial industry?
What's really good about Boundless right now is we're very much a geospatial company. We started as a very developer-centric company. We've added a lot of key talent with geospatial experience, and I think that's really helped us to understand how best to play in the geospatial world. For example, our CEO, our head of our federal sales, our head of our commercial sales all have geospatial experience. Myself, I've spent my entire career in the geospatial community, so we're able to navigate around the intricacies of a startup culture by being able to provide a lot of expertise on the geospatial side of the house. So again, going back to your first question about our partnership with Harris, right? Perfect example where we know we can't do everything ourselves. We are looking for other technologies to partner with us to make these types of integrations possible. You're exactly right. No one can do it on their own, especially not a small company like ours.
Yeah, even the big companies, they're looking for small companies, very creative and innovative products and solutions that can really fit into their larger solutions.
Yeah, we are too. And I encourage anyone who's very interested in open source to certainly contact Boundless. We are willing to work with anyone, especially in places where we know there's a need and we can't fill that need ourselves. So we are absolutely open to working with everybody.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much, Anthony. Thanks for speaking with GeoBiz.
Thank you.